Hi everyone. So in this session, I will demonstrate few of the things that we have discussed in the morning sessions. And this session is not to demonstrate everything that we have discussed so far. It's just, I just want to this way of letting out the fear of exploring something. So um, I've I'm demonstrating it on using the Python language. So those who are not aware of it, you can just install using the link um, sent in the message. I'm just sharing the link. So you can install it using that link. So if you install that link, you can install this basically the Anaconda 3, which installs a Jupyter Notebook and Spider and an Anaconda command prompt also. This Jupyter is interactive way of writing the code in Python, and Spider is the editor for that Python. So once you install that, um, so, so Sanju sir, can you see everything? Sanju sir,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
you can see right what I'm searching something. You can see it right.
Your desktop is there, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
So now, so once you install that, if you type Anaconda here, so you can see there's different different applications that are installed under that. You can see that right, Jupyter Notebook, Spider, Anaconda Prompt. All these are the different tools that have been installed. I'll just close it because I just want to demonstrate that. I've already opened it, but I'll open it for you. So I would like to open this Jupyter notebook for now. It's, okay. So once this comes, you can open it. Click here to go to Jupyter. Right? This is a home page, and if you want to upload your files or open something from here, these are the like if you want to open something from desktop, or if you want to create a new file, Python file, you can also create that. So you can also open the existing file. So once you open this, so this is the interactive mode of writing a code. So you can simply write whatever that you want to write. I'll just I'm using it as a calculator for now to demonstrate. 1 by 3, shift enter. If I type, it is 0 0.8. So if you want to execute the command that whatever that you have written there, you can press shift enter. It will execute that and it will go to the next cell. So if you want to provide some description for the things that you would like to uh, write in the um, subsequent cells, then you can change the cell type to markdown, and you can write the text that whatever you can also copy paste the images also here. uh, so for example, a demonstration about the probability. This is what I want to write, so it just writes the text. If you want to give some image here, you can also give an image here. Let me take some image if I can. So I'm just copying this image. Control enter or shift enter works. So this you can simply have some images also if you want to provide some images to the reader. You can also do that. So you can write your code here. So for example, b equal to 1 and a equal to 2 and c equal to a plus b. This is what I want to write. You can write control enter, and now I just want to print what is the value of c. Print So that is 3. So this way you can write it. So okay, this is all just to introduce this, make you feel comfortable with the edit with the tool that I'm going to use. So now we'll go to the probability. We'll see uh, how you can analyze the data. I mean, if you want to see the distribution in the data and cumulative distribution, all these things you can, if you would like to analyze in your data, then you can do it using Python. Um, some message. Um, Step-by-step installation, because it is already installed in my system. Now it is not possible, but if you simply follow the instructions in that, you will be able to install. You don't worry about it. If you get any doubts, you can come back, you get back to me. No problem. The installation is easy, it's not that much. So, let's go to this probability. This I have already written some code here. We'll go through this. Uh, a simple one only. I did not do much typical things here. This. Um, so these are the different libraries that I have imported here. If you can see, import pandas as a PD and import MATLAB. lib dot- This is for handling the data. This pandas library, and this is for plotting the data. Matplotlib.py. So these are the libraries that I have imported. We will also include import the NumPy library that is also for handling the data. So this pandas library have a method called read CSV that reads CSV files. Separator you can give. Uh, Separator in my case is comma. So it loads all this data, which is in the CSV file or .xl file to this data object. So in data, I have the data which is loaded from this CSV file. If you would like to see the CSV file, I can show you. Where is it? At top settled area. Oh, I'm in that one. It's taking time. We'll got it. I'll show you once it opens. So now, so let me execute this. Control enter. I typed. I'm executing this. It is loading those libraries. It takes little time to load the libraries. Okay, it is done. So this is done. Now I load this file data to data. So, did what data? So it is already loaded the data. So if you would like to see what is there in this data, I mean because that file was not open, I can show you here. So this is the data that we have in the file, which has many columns, that listing key, listing number, listing creation date, and so on, launch status, term, close date. These are all different attributes, and there are total one 1,13,937 rows and 81 attributes, 81 columns. So this is the data, but we would like to invest we would like to analyze only one column in this, that is stated monthly income. So I'll just bring you how the data looks like in this. This is the stated monthly income, which is one column in that file. So I access this through this data dot stated monthly income is the attribute title. So I access that, and this is the data. That is how it looks like. There are total 1,13,936 records in this um, file, and this is one column of that file. So I'm just removing the records whose with the income greater than 20,000. So 2E, I'll just print for you. 2E4 is the uh, 2 times 10 power 4. So I can print it for you. So this is 20,000. You can see it, right? So, so this is the data that I am just removing it to just make sure that I remove the extreme cases so that I'll have a good distribution of the data over the bills. This is the data. So after removing, let me print the data. So this after I got some message, let me see. But before that, let me finish this. So earlier it is 1,13,936, right? Now it is 1,12,674. So the number of rows are reduced now because we have eliminated few of these records. So I just removed the records with greater than 20 lakh. Sorry, sir, 20,000. So there is some message. Could we get the data set? Yes, you can download, I can share it also. Is it over for today afternoon session? It's going on. Okay. Okay, this is okay. So this is the data that we have printed after. Okay, so you just want to see this only. You don't want to see all the data. So this is after eliminating that records with 20,000 stated monthly income. So now I want to analyze this data. That what is the distribution of the stated monthly income of different people. So if I would like to draw a histogram with only 2 bins, so the data would be something like this. So bins um, would be like this. So there is a income range minus 5,000 to 5,000 is in one range and one bin, and 5,000 to approximate 5,000 to 15,000 is in another bin. So you can see the probability of income range. Most of the people are falling in this minus 5,000 to 5,000 bin, and very few people are falling in 5,000 to 15,000 bin. So, but how do you do this? How can you analyze or plot a figure or histogram, something like this? Using NumPy library, you can do that. Import NumPy as NP. So this is the NumPy library that I've imported, and I'm using NP to refer to that library. So which is equivalent to np.histogram of this data that we would like to analyze, and the number of bins is equivalent to 2. So when I have the number of bins is equivalent to 2, so what will I have? The whole data should be segregated into 2 parts. So I'll analyze the data and see what is the income range, and I'll mm, segregate them into 2 bins. and I'll draw the corresponding edges also. You can see what is there. It returns two parameters, edge and edges. You can see what is there in both of this. I'll just print it for you. You can see this, the total number of members in the first bin and the total number of members in the second bin. So 1,02,864 is the total number of members in the first bin, and 9,810 is the total number of members in the second bin. And 0 to 9979 is the bin range for this. For the first bin, and from 9979 to 1998958 is the bin range for the second bin. And total there are 1,12,074 records. So once you get this histogram and edges, histogram is the total number of members in that bin for each of these bins. You can plot a figure of size 10 by 4. 10 is the width of the bin and 4 is the height of the bin. So if you change this to 10 by 10, you will have a tall figure than this. And then you will plot. In that figure, you want to plot some subplot, that is 1 1 1, where 1 is the number of rows and another one for number of columns and another one to give the position, because we would like to only plot only one subfigure in this, that is only histogram. So only number of rows in this figure is 1, number of columns is 1, therefore obviously the position is 1. Suppose if you want to plot two subfigures in this, like histogram of one data in one figure and an histogram of another figure, or histogram with two bins in one figure, histogram of 4 bins in another figure, then you can give 2 1 1 for plotting this figure and 2 1 2 for plotting another figure. That we can see, that we have another example that we can see. So these are the different that you can set the text size or bar size. All these things you can set using these methods, and you can also set X label, that is the stated monthly income that you can see here, stated monthly income in dollars, and Y label you set as a probability of income range that you can see here, and minor ticks on, because you can see that minor ticks also, right? Between 0 to 2500 there are some minor ticks, right? So if you don't on this minor ticks, they will not be visible. So finally you show this plot. If you want, you can save the plot also. In that case, you have to give the address of the folder where you would like to save this figure. Okay, so this is how you can visualize the data. So with the two bins. So similarly, if you would like to see the data if you want to do further analysis and you want to divide them into more number of bins, then also you can give. You just have to change the bins. It will automatically segregate them into 4 bins. You can see this is segregated into 4 bins, and most of them are falling in this range in the first bin. And if you want to segregate them into 50 bins, it means that you would like to analyze them deep, then the probability distributions of this stated monthly salary is in this range. So suppose the company or the government want to provide some schemes for the people who are having less than 2,500 stated monthly salary, then also you can get using this, isn't it? And you can also analyze, you can provide, you can you can calculate the tax, various things that you can do with this data analysis. All right. Now, we have also talked about the cumulative probability distribution, isn't it, in the morning session? We also talked about the cumulative probability distribution, which is the probability of x less than or equal to x. So if you see this probability that stated monthly salary is less than or equal to 5,000 is 0.58, and probability that it is less than 10,000 is 0.93, and probability that it is less than 15,000 is 0.99. So it means that only 0.01 percentage of, I mean, only 1% of the people is having salary greater than or equal to 50,000. That's what we can analyze from this data. So if you see how to draw this cumulative probability distribution from the data that you have in hand, that's what we look at. So before that, as I have told you, if you want to draw two figures in the two subplots in the same figure, you can do it. So this is an example of that. Not two, you can draw any number of subplots in that, but this is an example of two figures in that with two rows. In the first row we have histogram, and in the second row we have cumulative probability distribution. So how do we do that? You know how to do this, right? Histogram, you have already seen that. We will see how to do this cumulative probability distribution. So before that, how to give two subplots? You can see this, right? This part is related to the top figure in the top subplot in the figure. That is the histogram, and this is related to this red curve, that is cumulative probability distribution. So we'll see now. So if you want to have two subplots, then you can have two rows or two columns. Both are okay, either 2 1 or 1 2. Here in this case, two rows are given. That is two rows and one column. Only one column, isn't it? And the position, that where you want to place this subplot in the first cell. So first cell is this, the top one. Similarly, this also in the subplot, you want to place this in the second position. So this is in the second position. So once you have that, you know how to compute, how to draw these histograms, isn't it? So you've already seen that in the previous calculations. So figure size is 10 by 6, and you have different incomes, probabilities. You can see that histograms. Well, but let us see this, the second one, the cumulative probabilities. Once you have these probabilities, how to compute these probabilities? This we have histogram, isn't it? You have histogram of probabilities, isn't it? This is like at this position, this is the probability. At this position, this is the probability. So, what is the cumulative probability if I ask at this stage, which is the sum of probabilities of all the values that are less than this, isn't it? So, if I add this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this, I will get cumulative probability here, isn't it? Similarly, if I add all the probabilities still here, I would get the cumulative probability here. And similarly, if I add all these probabilities still here, I would get the cumulative probability till here. That's what the cumulative probability, isn't it? So probability of x less than or equal to x. That is the cumulative probability. How do you do that? Because we have already have an array of these values, each of these probabilities, isn't it? So now I will have to add 1 by
Sir, please unmute yourself.
I don't know why somebody
Yes.
muted me.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So in order to do that, you can see example here. You have array. Suppose if you want to find the cumulative probabilities for each of these values, you can just call array dot cumulative sum, CUMSUM. This is the cumulative sum. So if you do that, you can see the outcome here, right? So this is the cumulative probability at first index, that is 1, because you don't have any other mm, value before that. At the second value, it is 1 plus 1, that is 2. And at the third value, it is 1 plus 1 plus 1, that is 3. So you can see that, right? So you have a cumulative sum is being added at each and every index. So you just have to call array dot cumulative sum. So similarly, if you have an array of probabilities, you can just call cumulative sum on that array. So that's what this is doing. So it is just calling cumulative sum on the histogram. So we have histogram, it is calling the cumulative sum divided by the root of sum of x, that is total probability. So we get the probabilities. Once you get the probabilities, you just have to plot them by using different line colors. So you just plot them. This one, edges, probabilities, line width is 5, color equal to red. So this is corresponding to this red line. And you can see another thing here, that is these dotted lines with different probability distributions. So for this, we have analyzed for less than, how many are less than, how many are having less than 5,000 income, how many are having less than 10,000 income, how many are having less than 15,000 income. So this is what the kind of analysis that we want to do. What is the probability of salary being less than 5,000, probability of salary being less than 10,000, and so on. So for that, for each of these things, you have to draw this dotted lines. How do you do that? So for each of these probabilities, you compute the probability of less than 10,000, probabilities of edges is equivalent to I, and you draw a line, x dot plot, with a line style equal to dotted lines, color equal to black. And similarly, uh, you also keep a text there representing what is the probability at that point, probability of less than 5,000 or less than 10,000 or less than 15,000. This you repeat for all the income values. What are the income values? We have given already income values, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. So for 5,000 you draw the same, at 10,000 you draw the same, and 15,000 you draw the same. This is how you can visualize the data and analyze the data. So if you want to analyze a particular probability distribution, that also you can do. If you would like to visualize a particular probability distribution, like for example, you see the binomial probability distribution. This you know, right? This morning we have seen binomial probability distribution formula: n factorial by k factorial times n minus k factorial times probability of success power, probability of p power k times 1 minus p power n minus k. That's what we have seen, right? So this is b here is the probability of success, and this factorial you can import it from the math library. You can directly compute factorial of a particular number. So once you have that, you can visualize these curves. For example, you have 100 trials and probability of success is 0.5. Then the binomial curve, you can see corresponding binomial curve for that is this blue one, which is centered around the 50. So the mean value of this binomial curve is centered around 50, no bias. See, for example, you have 100 trials of coin toss, okay, and probability of heads is 0.5. Then there is a more chance that the probability, if you toss 100 coins, probability is around 50, isn't it? So if there is a no bias in the coin, if there is a bias, then it the mean value may spread across. See, for example, if b equal to, that is probability of x is equal to 0.6 and equal to 100, then it is biased towards the right. You see that this green one, it is biased towards the right, and this is also not biased. this 0.5 and n equal to 50. So it is centered around 25. That is not biased. If you see this, let me change this to 0.9, I suppose, and this I have changed it to 0.1. This 0.5, but I'll give 100 only. You can see the figures. Oh, something. Something went wrong, but usually the case is that if the probability of success is very low, then it is biased towards the left. If the probability of success is very high, it is biased towards the right. And if it is equiprobable, then it is in the it will be a symmetric one. It means that around the mean value, most of the values will be spread. That you will see later, but I don't want to waste time for checking that. So this is an example that probability of greater than or equal to k fellow students getting a job after 6 months. That is what you want to analyze. So here if you see the total number of students is 25, probability of success is 0.9, and number of, we would like to analyze the number of students get job after 6 months. If you see this, you just have to call binomial of probability mass function and cumulative distributive function. So if you call that, you will get the individual probabilities and the cumulative probability. So then you will have to just plot these two probabilities, individual probability as well as cumulative probability. So individual probability is this. This is how it is distributed. Cumulative probability is of adding these values at each and every element. So this is how you can visualize the data and analyze the data with different probability distributions, and the underlying distribution of your data also can be visualized using these tools and different functions in the Python. There are many other. I hope you would explore all of them. Now we'll go to demonstrate naive Bayes classifier. You all remember that naive Bayes classifier, isn't it? The Bayes computer equal to yes or no. That's the example. Here we have a different example, and but we did not implement. I didn't implement for the same example because the data is real value data, not the categorical data. So we have a different distribution there that I will explain later. But before that, let me go through the procedure that how to calculate the probabilities with the help of this discrete case example, and then we'll implement it for the continuous value data, and also you can use the library directly instead of implementing it from the scratch. So this is an example of game prediction using Bayesian theorem. So let's continue our naive Bayes tutorial and predict the future with some weather data. So you want to predict the game, whether you'll play game or whether he will play a game or not. So your target class value takes two values, that is yes or no. It is a binary classification problem. and the instances are different days, day 1 to day 14, and attributes are outlook, humidity, wind. So what is the outlook on day 1, what is the humidity on day 1, and what is the wind on day 1? Outlook takes three values: sunny, overcast, and rain. Humidity takes two values: normal and high. Wind takes two values: weak and strong. So these are the different attributes of this example. So now we'll create a frequency table using each attribute of the data set. So first we'll take the first attribute, outlook. There are three different values in this: sunny, overcast, and rain. So if you take sunny, overcast, and rain, this is the distribution of yes and no over these attribute values. So at sunny equal, outlook equal to sunny and play equal to s, there are three instances out of all the 14 instances. And sunny, outlook equal to sunny and play equal to no, there are two instances, and so on. So there are total 14 number of instances distributed among these different values of this attribute. Similarly, for humidity attribute, we will construct the frequency table, that is high. Humidity takes two values, high and normal. Humidity equal to high, play equal to s, there are three instances, and so on. Similarly, you construct a frequency table for the wind also. So once you construct, once you create frequency table for each of these attributes, we'll go for likelihood table. So what is the probability that outlook equal to sunny and play equal to s? So if you see, total number of instances with s is equivalent to 10, and total number of instances with no equivalent to 4. I think it is 9 and 5, but anyway, this wrongly calculated probably, but yeah. So play equal to s. So outlook equal to sunny and play equal to s. The likelihood of that is 3 by 10. That is probability of x given probability of sunny given s, which is equivalent to 3 by 10, 0.3. Similarly, probability of sunny, if you sum it over or marginalize it over both the s and no, this is 5 by 14. This is the marginal probability that outlook equal to sunny. Similarly, this is the marginal probability that it is play equal to s, which is equivalent to 0.7. Now you have a frequency table and you have a likelihood table. You will do this for all the other values also. Like that, you will get the likelihood tables for this attribute humidity and attribute wind also. So from the data. So just note that you have given just data. From that, you are obtaining all these statistics, different statistics that you require to compute this naive Bayes. So you are computing all these statistics from your given data, training data. This is the training data. So you computed likelihood of each and every attribute. So once you have that, you have to estimate what is the probability of S and what is the probability of no given these attribute values. So what is the probability of S given that humidity is equivalent to high, which is equivalent to 0.42. Similarly, probability of no given given humidity equivalent to high is 0.58. Like that, you calculate probability for each and every possible value, that is probability of S and probability of no. So you remember that we have given where is that? No. So this is the so that is how you calculate the probabilities. So suppose we have given the following values. It means that this is a new instance that we would like to classify, that whether the play would be yes or play would be no. So these are the attribute values that this new instance take. Outlook equal to rain, humidity equivalent to high, and wind equivalent to weak. So using these attribute values, you have to calculate probability of S and probability of no for these individual values. So outlook equal to rain, Humidity equivalent to high. What is the probability of yes? Probability of no. Wind equivalent to weak. What is the probability of yes and probability of no? Once you have calculated all these values, you just have to estimate the likelihood of yes on that day. That is outlook equivalent to rain given as multiply all these individual values that you have computed. What is that? Outlook equal to rain given as, humidity equivalent to high given as, wind equivalent to weak given as times probability of S, which is equivalent to 0.0199. And similarly, you estimate the likelihood for no also, which is equivalent to 0.0166. Now, when we normalize these values, you have got likelihood for each of these S and no. So you can directly classify it as S, because the likelihood of S is more 0.0199, which is greater than 0.0166. But you can normalize it and say that now when you normalize this, probability of S is equivalent to 0.0199 divided by sum of 0.199 plus 0.0166. So which is equivalent to 0.555. So you can say that our model predicts that there is a 55% chance there to win again, a chance that there will be a gain tomorrow. So that is how you do it. So this is just how you get these statistics from the data. This example demonstrates, given a training data, how do you get all these statistics and finally arrive at the probability of probability that it is yes and probability that it is no. Once you calculate both the probabilities, you select the one with the higher probability. So that is, it is just a demonstration of the model using the discrete example. But now we'll take the continuous case, uh, and we'll assume that this individual attributes follow Gaussian distribution. We'll first go to the main function and we'll this is the data that we have used, PIMA Indians diabetes data. In that data, we have total 8 attributes and a target variable, which is 0 or 1, whether he has a diabetes or not. The number of times pregnant is one of the attribute. Plasma glucose concentration, diastolic blood pressure, all these things, age, all these things are the different features of this data. So you have total 8 attributes, and ninth one is the target variable. So this is the data. So I have this data. If you want, I can share with you, or if you type this PIMA Indians diabetes.csv also, you will get in the Google. Okay, so so this is the main function. I split the data into 2 by 3rd and 1 by 3rd. 2 by 3rd is for training, and 1 by 3rd is for, excuse me. So 2/3 is for training and 1/3 is for testing. So I load file, that is my file is loaded into the data set. So I have this data set. Now I split this data set with this split ratio. We'll see how to split this data set. These are all the different functions that I'm calling from this main function. I just want to explain what is the functionality of each of these functions, and then we'll explore each of these functions in depth. So this is the high level view of the naive-Bayes classifier that we are implementing. So I just loaded the data set. That is, the data set is loaded into the data set, and I split this data set using the split data set function, which is implemented, which is our own implementation. So for which it takes 2 parameters, data set and split ratio, in which ratio I have to split this data set. So 0.67 means it is for training, rest is for testing. So it returns 2 sets, training set and test set. And then once I get the training set and test set, I give training set to summarize by class, and I get the summaries. For this, prepare a model. So I prepare a model by getting these summaries. Like whatever that we have seen in this our example, like we get the likelihood calculations, isn't it? For each and every attribute, we get the likelihood calculations. So this summary summarized by class will return you something like this: summaries for each and every attribute. What is the mean value of that attribute? What is the standard deviation of that attribute? These are all important for calculating the probabilities for a continuous value if it is following a certain distribution, and we have assumed that it follows the Gaussian distribution. And once you get these summaries, you pass these summaries and test set to the prediction. So these summaries are like models. So you got the models, you have trained a model here. Let's say suppose you have trained a model by passing the training set, and you got the model here. Using this model, you want to predict the test set, that is new instances. So you pass the summaries and the test set to the get predictions, and you will get the predictions for these new instances, the instances that are not seen by the model while training. So once you get the predictions, you want to estimate the accuracy of your model. So you want to call a get accuracy method, which passes test set and predictions. Means that you already know what is the ground truth of each and every example in this test set, and you also know the predicted value. So you know the actual value and you know the predicted value. So you want to compare them whether it is right or not. So in how many cases there is a hit, or in how many cases there is a miss, you want to calculate, and then finally you want to print the accuracy of the model. So now we'll see one by one. So load CSV file, it is you already know, but anyway we'll see this load CSV file. Where is this load CSV file? So load CSV file, taking file name. This should be, I mean, I have the file name. I mean, you can directly give file name here, but anyway, I have given the complete path. So anyway, file name you can give in place of this, just file name. Okay. So CSV reader, open file, open this file, whatever the file specified in the main, and then data set equal to list of lines. I mean, it lists all the lines in the data set. Then for each of these, it is converting into the float value. Okay, because the data may be in the string format, it is converting the data to a float format for the analysis purpose. That is what this load CSV is doing. Once you load CSV, it returns the data set in the floating value format. So it is returning here. All right. So the data set is written here. So this data set, we would like to split it into training and test sets. So we are calling, for that purpose, we are calling split data set method. So split data set method, let's go to the split data set method. So this is split data set method, which takes two inputs, data set and the split ratio. So here it is finding what is the train size and the test size. So train size is what? If the split ratio is 0.67, which means that 67% of the whole data set should go to the train size. So the length of data set times split ratio will give the train size. And train set is we randomly select these number of train size number of instances to the train set. So we initially set the train set to be nothing, that is it is an empty set. Then while train set length less than or equal to train size, it means that till we get train size number of instances, we randomly select these instances from the data set, and then we add or append them to the training set. We append them to the training set. So once we append them to the training set, you see this data set is copied here. It means that in the copy we have a copy of the data set. So from this copy of the data set, every time we are copying one instance randomly, and we are not replacing it back. So, and this procedure we are repeating till we get train size number of instances. So once we get the train size number of instances, that is this condition will fail and we will return train set and the copy. So what do we have? Once you pop all the instances to the train set, the remaining will be a test set. So we have a train set and copy is the test set. So we are returning training set and the testing set after splitting the data into training and testing sets. So let's go back. So this is done. Now we have training set and we have test set. Now we are calling to prepare a model. We are calling summarize by class. So summarize by class. So here just we are printing. We are splitting these many number of rows into train and test. Like you can see example here, splitting 768 rows into train equal to 514 and test equal to 254 rows. That is what it is printing here. Okay, all right. So then summarize by class. So let's go to the summarize by class, which takes training set as the input and returns summaries. So what is it doing to prepare a model? Summarize by class. So this is summarized by class. This data set, this is separated by class. So it is calling another method, separate by class, passing this data set into that method. So what is doing? It is separating the data set class wise. So the instances that belongs to class 0 or all the instances that belongs to class 1 are separated into different bins. If it is 3-4 classes, the instances that belongs to class 1 and so instances that belongs to class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4 and so on. So separate by class, let's go to the separate by class. So this is separate by class. It takes the data set. So I in the range of length of data set, so it means that from I equal to 1 to n, vector of data set of I and vector of -1 not in a separated list, separate. It means that if for each of these instances, if it is not in the separated list, then it takes the class value out and then it appends the remaining vector to the separate. So it means it just taking out sorry. So it is just taking out the feature vector of a particular thing and it is appending to the list of that class. So separated of one dot append of vector. It means that it will have this will have list of all the feature vectors with class 1. Separated of 2 dot append of vector. This will have list of all the vectors with class 2. So vector of -1 is the end one. That is the last column is the class information, isn't it? So if it is 1, it will append to the first list. If it is 2, it will append that vector corresponding vector to the second list and so on. If you have 10 classes, it will create 10 lists and those 10 lists are there in the separated list that returns separated list. So we separated these values class wise, these instances class wise. So this is separated. So this once you separate this, we summarize this for each class value and instances in the separated dot items. So from this separated dot items, we are taking the instances class by class and we are summarizing them. So class 1, suppose if you take, it is calling summarize. Let's go to summarize. So it is calculating what is the mean value of each and every attribute in that class and what is the standard deviation of each and every attribute in that class. It is calculating and these summaries are sent back to this summarized by class function. So it is computing the mean of the attribute for each attribute in this data set. This is the iterator, GIP of star data set, it is iterator. It is iterating over the attributes, different attributes. So for each attribute, it calculates mean value and standard deviation. You know how to calculate mean value. So sum of numbers divided by length of numbers is the mean value and standard deviation is x minus average is a whole square divided by n minus 1. And you know we have already seen the formula first time. I think we have given here also. So this is the standard deviation formula. Square root of 1 by n minus 1 times sum over I equal to 1 to n xi minus x bar whole square. So that is what is implemented here in the standard deviation. So once you calculate the standard deviation and the mean for each and every attribute, it will return to this, and this you repeat for each and every class value. So now we have mean, standard deviation for each and every attribute class wise. Class wise. So these summaries are sent back to the main function. So this is something like this. So we have a likelihood tables for each and every class value and the attribute value, isn't it? So it is similar to that. So once you have this summaries, you get predictions for the test data. So our model is ready. Now we want to get the predictions for the test data. So this is the test data. Let's go to the get predictions. So this is get predictions. We have, which takes two values, summaries that we have summarized in the previous function, and test set. Test set is the set of instances that we would like to predict. So predictions equivalent to null. I mean, it is an empty set. So there is nothing in the predictions. And for each value, for each instance in the test set, you would like to predict, and that will return the results. And this you are appending it to the predictions list and returning the predictions list. So how this prediction is done? To see that, you have to go to this prediction function, which takes summaries and test set of I, that is a single instance in the test set. So this predict function is taking summaries, which is our model, and test set of I, which is a single instance from the test set, and returning the results, which means the prediction is returned to this is returned. So what is this is doing? It is calculating the probabilities. Calculate class probabilities from the summaries and the input vector. What are the class probabilities? We have a new instance which takes a certain value, isn't it? So we have a new instance which takes certain value for each of these attributes. If the attribute value 1 is so and so, what is the probability that it belongs to S? If the attribute value 2 is so and so, what is the probability that it belongs to S or no? So we have to calculate all those probabilities. So calculate class probabilities. So class value, class summaries, we are calculating the probability value of class 1 equal to 1, because once you calculate the probability for each and every attribute, because these attributes are independent, you have to multiply all these probabilities in order to get the final value for that instance. So each instance takes separate, say for example 8 attributes in this case. For each of these attributes you have a certain value. So once you multiply all these individual 8 values, you would get the probability that instance is S or the probability that instance is no. So for that you are calculating the probabilities, and you are for I equal to in the range of length of class summaries, because you have already done this for each and every attribute, isn't it? So for each class value and for each attribute, for each class value and each attribute, you are extracting this mean and standard deviation that you have already computed from the class summaries, and x is your input vector, probability of class value times equivalent to calculate probability of x comma mean comma standard deviation. Okay, so for this value you are computing calculate probability for a particular x. For a particular x, it means that if suppose new instance is given to you, number of times pregnant is 2, that is the first attribute, and the second attribute, say suppose it is 100, third attribute it is 50, okay, and so on. Okay, so it passes the first attribute value, that is 2, and mean standard deviation of that attribute for that class value, and compute the probability using the normal distribution function. So you have a normal distribution function, so which is calculate the Gaussian probability density function for this x value with this mu and with this standard deviation. This is what it is doing in the calculate probability. So what is the probability for a given x? This you are calculating for each and every attribute and for each and every class. Once you have this probability for each attribute, you are multiplying all these probabilities. That's what you are doing in this. And this you are repeating for different classes. Probability of class 1, probability of class 2, probability of class 3, as many number of classes as you have. In this example, we have only two classes, 0 and 1. So this could be repeated for both the classes. Probability of class 0, class value is 0, probability when class value equivalent to 1. So this is a multiplication of individual attributes probabilities, because you assume that individual probabilities attributes are independent. So once you get the probabilities, what is the task? Once you get the probabilities, let's go here. And where did we call this? Calculate probabilities. Here. So calculate class probabilities. Once you get the class probabilities, you select the one with the best probability. So you compare probabilities among these classes and assign the label with the highest probability. So best probability is the one with the best probability. So once you get the best probability corresponding label, you return that best label. So this completes predict. So what are you doing? Just to summarize, in the predict, you are calculating the class probabilities. It means that what is the probability that it is yes, what is the probability that it is no. And this depends on the different attributes. For each and every attribute value, what is the probability that it is belongs to S and what is the probability that it is no, based on the underlying probability distribution you are computing. Once you get this individual attributes probability, you are multiplying all of them and getting the class probability. And this you are doing it for multiple classes, class 0 and class 1. Once you get probabilities of individual classes, you are computing which is the highest probable class and returning that label. If class label 1 is the highest probability, then return it as a label 1. If 0 is having highest probability, then return it as 0. So this completes predict. So once you complete predict, go back to this, get so go back to this, you got the results. This is for the single instance. The same procedure, and append these results to the predictions. And once this repeat this for each and every instance in the test set, and you return all the predictions. So this is predictions of all the instances in the test set. So it is returning predictions of all the instances in the test set in the same order. Once you get all the predictions, you compute the accuracy. You know the ground truth which is there in the test set, you know the predictions, then compute the accuracy and display that accuracy. So you can see the get accuracy. You can see this, right? So if test set of x comma minus 1 is equivalent to predictions of x, it means that test set of x comma minus 1, which is the last column in the test set, that is set of all the actual labels, and these are set of all the predictions. If they are equal, then plus 1, otherwise not, and compute the number of hits or the percentage of hits. This gives the accuracy. So that is completed. So let's execute one by one. Loading all this and loading CSV. I just defined it here. It takes time because the load instructions are there, import instructions are there. So it's taking longer. It's taking time. I don't know why. But then I have executed it yesterday. You can see that the main function, it is printing that there are 768 rows and we are dividing them into 514 into the train set and 254 rows into the test set. And accuracy of this model is 68.5. So you have to just execute each. Let me see if I have already completed. No. Taking time. If it executes, then we'll come back to this. I mean, if it, okay. Meanwhile, this is implementing this naive-based classifier from the scratch. But you can also simply call the existing function by using the scikit-learn library. That is from sklearn import datasets. I mean the existing datasets, the benchmark datasets, all are there in this. And sklearn import metrics and sklearn.naive-base import Gaussian naive. So you are importing Gaussian naive base directly from this library. So you are loading dataset, that is dataset. This will also take time because imports are there. But let me see if this is complete. Too much of heat probably because of that. Okay, at least let me execute this if it is executed. So once you load the dataset, these are the existing benchmark datasets. You can directly call this load iris. It will load the iris dataset. Iris dataset is a flower dataset which has the information about 3 flowers. Say for example, flower 1, flower 2, flower 3. And each flower is described with a certain number of attributes like a petal length, petal width, and so on. And there are 50 instances in each of these flowers. Flower 1, 50 instances with flower 1. In the 50 instances with the class flower 1, 50 instances with class flower 2, and 50 instances with class flower 3. Once you have that data set, you can keep, yeah, I think it is there. So, okay, so once you have that, you can just call the model, that is Gaussian naive Bayes, and you are trying to fit this data to this model. So you have a dataset.data, which is the actual features, and dataset.target, which is the target variables for that data. So you have a dataset for which you have a set of features and also set of target variables, and you want to fit model to this data. So model.fit, if you call, it will fit the model to this data. That is the Gaussian naive Bayes model to this data. Once you have this model, you can predict the future instances. That is, expected value is dataset.target. That is, this is the set of target variables, and you want to predict it for dataset.data. This is the set of features that is given to this predict. Model.predict. You can call model.predict on a new data and predict the predict the class value for the new instances. So you have the expected value and you also have the predicted value. In this case, we just took the training data only for the prediction, but in general, you split the data into training and testing data, and then you train the model for the training data set, means that you fit the model for the training data set and you predict it for the test set. Two different data sets we usually use, but in this case, I just used the actual data only, the whole data for both training and the testing. So I fit the whole data for the training purpose, and I got the model. And once I get the model, I call the predict function to predict it. These are all the existing models in this library, existing functions in this library. Just have to call them. You need not implement. So you can see just how many lines of code: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines of code. This is done. Whereas here, if you see, around 100 or more than that number of lines of code, if you have to write, if you have to implement the scratch. So once you get that, you get the accuracy. So you can just call matrix.confusion matrix to generate, you know, the confusion matrix, right? This is the confusion metric. It means that say this row corresponding to 0, class 0 or class 1. Say that there are 3 classes I told, right? Flower 1, flower 2, flower 3. So this 50 says how many instances of flower 1 are predicted as flower 1. So all the instances of flower 1 are predicted as flower 1. There is no confusion in this. So 0 instances of flower 1 are predicted as flower 1, flower 2, and 0 instances of flower 1 are predicted as flower 3. Okay, there is no confusion here. If you see here, 0 instances of flower 2 are predicted as flower 0. No confusion. 47 instances of flower 2 are predicted as flower 2. It means the correct prediction of flower 2. 3 instances of flower 2 are predicted as flower 3. So there is a confusion of, and the confusion frequency is 3. And similarly here, 3 instances of flower 3 are predicted as flower 2. And 47 instances of flower 3 are predicted as 47. So from this, you can actually compute the accuracy or precision, recall, or whatever that you want to calculate. So it is very simple. So you can also just call matrix.classification report by passing this expected and predicted, and it will return this class-wise summaries, class-wise measures for each of these. That is the precision, what is the class precision for 0 class, first class, and second. This correspond to flower 1, this correspond to flower 2, and this correspond to flower 3. And these are the different statistics that we have got. All right. So let me see at least now. No, it is not. I don't know. Oh, let me refresh it. I think that's the problem. Connection to the server might have been lost. I think that's the problem. Another 5 minutes, I'll just finish it. Okay, I'm executing this. See how fast it is. That's the problem. Okay, so I am defining each of these. This we have already explained each of these functions. I'm just defining it. Defining the second function. This is handling the data. Step 2 is summarizing the data. This is the model building. Step 2 is model building. I'm just simply executing all these functions that I have already described. Control enter I'm pressing. Enter, if you press, it will automatically go to the next, but I would like to press control enter. I just want to execute these coding blocks, not the text blocks. Then press execute it. So now I'm executing the main function. You can see the results. Split 768 rows into 514 training and 254 testing. Test data accuracy is 61.4. If you execute it one more time, you may get different results because of the random splitting. You see, now the accuracy is 67.7. If you execute it one more time, it is 61.02. If you execute one more time, 65.74. So that is why what people usually do is that you repeat the procedure for some 50 number of or 100 number of runs and take the average. Because if you run it once and say suppose for that particular split, you might have got a very high accuracy for your model. So then it is erroneous results. You cannot generalize it. That is why usually what people do is that they take many number of runs and take average of all those runs. Let's also finish this. Okay. So this is model we are calling Gaussian naive-Bayes model, and we are fitting the model to this data, and we are predicting for this data. Okay, done. Now I'm calling this classification report and confusion matrix, and these are the results. All right. So here you see, if you execute as many number of times as you execute, it would be the same, because here no randomness. You are training it on all the data and testing it on all the data. So the results would be same for this. So as I have told you already, it is just for letting out the fear of exploring something new. But then this is, I mean, we cannot demonstrate each and everything in the limited time. So with this, I hope you will start exploring things on your own. Thank you very much. This is, handing it over to